So yesterday, while I was talking about whether or not I considered 4PP a failure, I briefly touched over the subject of why we didn't quote-unquote make it. Why is it that such a group as ours, who was at the forefront when streaming began, or I should say video game streaming, who had such a head start and namesake, end up not even relevant in today's stream-based culture? I think the simplest way to put it is to compare it with somebody who won the lottery. If you look at people who win the lottery, oftentimes you'll find that within a few years, all that money is gone. These people are oftentimes bad with money, and because they don't have the skills, it's an eventuality that they'll end up right where they started. So that sounds kind of harsh, right? Am I saying that 4PP was a talentless one-hit wonder? Well, to put it in a nicer way, let's just say that the skills required to be a streamer in this current generation didn't match up with the skills that the four of us had. So for example, right off the bat, none of us had any experience in cinematography. None of us had taken any classes in film. We didn't know much about the editing process. And I think that's an absolute necessary skill now. Like, you can't survive in this climate without being able to produce your own content. Another problem was that we weren't exactly the most technologically savvy people either. So I consider myself a kind of jack of all trades. I feel like I'm knowledgeable about a lot of things. I can fiddle with my own computer. But did I know about stream settings and building my own computer optimized for broadcasting? Not at all. I think it's well documented that for the longest time, we used a webcam and a SingStar mic for our equipment. And later on, when HD gaming became the standard, y'all probably remember that we were way behind in that too. Because we simply just didn't know what to do and we had to wait for people to show us. And then there's also the fact that we didn't really utilize YouTube the way others did. I think a lot of this had to do with the fact that we saw ourselves as a video game talk show first. I mean, that's how we started off. And then we started streaming the show to gain an audience. Streaming video games was a byproduct of that. I think we always saw ourselves as wanting to become journalists, like Greg Kasavin or Jeff Gersman or the late Ryan Davis. I think we always wanted to legit talk about video games. I just think the thought never crossed our mind. And maybe some of that had to do with our age and being somewhat out of touch. There are tons of other examples of stuff like this. None of us had any real business experience. None of us had actually worked in the real corporate world. We were just people who met and decided to talk about games. I don't even think that our goals had aligned up yet. And that's another thing that we had a problem with. I think one time in a video game interview, Hideki Kamiya said something to the effect of, "Too many captains sink a ship." And also I think that was a problem that affected us. Because we were all friends, it was very difficult sometimes for us to get things done. So for instance, sometimes when a decision had to be made, it always had to come down to a discussion. No one could ever just be the boss and make the decision, because we all saw each other as equals. No one wanted to be the asshole and say, "No, this is what we're doing." And even if somebody did, how could you enforce that and get everybody else to go along with it? It's not like any of us could actually be fired or demoted or take a pay cut or even be reprimanded. It turned out that one of our best attributes ended up being something that stifled us the most. And I think in the end, we all valued our friendship over our success. None of us could ever pull the trigger, and eventually stuff just kind of slipped away. And I think the other obvious big reason why we weren't able to capitalize on our initial success was because it was all uncharted territory. It was like the wild, wild west. No one knew what was going on. There was no sense of order. Even Twitch had to go through an evolution because they were JTV. And in all that chaos, I feel like we ran into that forest and carved a path. It was maybe the wrong path, but a lot of people would use it to end up carving a path of their own and figure out a way to make things work. Now, I don't want to take credit for their efforts. Obviously, these people put in the work and dedication to get where they are, but I do feel a little bit of gratification knowing that I was part of all of that in the beginning. So if you were to ask me today, David, what's your greatest strength? What's your skill? I'd say, I think I'm good at analyzing things. I'm good at giving something a chance, even though it's not necessarily popular yet. Those are the factors that led me into getting into K-pop back in 2001. It's what got me into AKB in 2006, and also into streaming at that time. All three of those ended up becoming very big phenomenons. Even now, I'm sitting here analyzing my past, hoping to learn something new and maybe pass it along to you guys. And so like I said before, I don't think I had the skills that would have catapulted me into broadcasting stardom. When I look at the broadcasters now that are successful, I think there are reasons you can see on why they are so. I think they have a lot more approachable personalities than mine. I think they're a lot more patient with people than I could ever be. And I think the type of games they want to play are more suited for building a community. But there I go again analyzing things. That's probably the job I'm better suited for. So if you want more stuff like analysis, I'm your guy. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.